Fight. Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. You can ignore the fact that that says instant reaction. We needed some time after last night and it being kind of late. We're recording this the next night just to kind of simmer on what ends up being almost the most pivotal game every year. Every finals is game 3. And Indiana, of course, went back home with the series tied 1-1 after stealing a game in Oklahoma City. And they won in front of all things considered, incredible crowd from everybody that was there, everybody that was talking about the broadcast. It came through, right? It was a home crowd that really brought the roar, I guess, whatever word you want to use. I don't want to talk about this game just yet. I want to address something. I just want to address the elephant in the room. I don't care if your name is Alex Caruso, Alex Sarr, or Alexander the Great. It does not matter. That flagrant foul in the fourth quarter, I believe, where Neesmith.
Oh, yeah, late.
Like, absolutely horse collar tackled him, moving in midair, jumping. I'm sorry, but like the wind up thing is a complete and utter fallacy. They need to get rid of that as one of the 2 of the 3 things have to be true in this point. I've watched basketball a long time now, right? I'm closer to 30 than I am my teens. That's a flagrant foul in every other league, in every other city, country, province of this world. And on the biggest stage in front of what people are going to say is, deflated ratings. A guy, absolutely swings his arms down, and in no way, his wingspan is the only reason. Like him having long, lengthy arms is the only reason it looked like he was even remotely going for the ball, which I don't believe, because he seemed like really kind of punked up about it at the end and kind of looked at him like that. And so I'm sorry, but I know you can't judge intent in any way, and I know they can't. I don't want that to be part of the criteria, but I don't know how anyone can watch that and not think that's at least a flagrant foul. I think it's ludicrous. I think it's ridiculous. And I get in the moment, people, even I think you at one point were like, I think it's a dumb play, but I'm okay with it not getting to that point. But I'm sorry, but there's just nothing about that wind up, nothing about the ball, the area of the hands. I think it's a flagrant foul, and that really changed the game, I think.
Yeah, 2:35 left when it happened. Thunder down 8, and the way they were shooting free throws last night, who knows? Caruso did hit both, I'm pretty sure. So would have been nice to get the ball back down 6. But
he did.
And then everybody decided to get blocked by Myles Turner the last 3 minutes of the game. So my take on it live was that has everything you need to call a flagrant foul. The fact that they didn't on the floor in that environment. To your point with that player being the victim there, now it's Caruso. I said it just seconds before we jumped on live, but if that's Shea, that's a foul. If that's J-Dub, that's a foul. Hell, if that's Chet, that's also probably a flagrant foul. But it's Alex Caruso, role player on role player crime there. And I think if you're going to miss it live when it was clear and obvious that he was not going for the ball, he was going for shoulders and arms to kind of, I guess, straitjacket him almost, just prevent any kind of motion toward the rim to make the shot. Miss the head, miss the neck, which great. If you're going to do anything right, you did that right. Caruso fell to the floor, not too hard of a fall. We lost Chet for half the season on a fall like that. Didn't come from a foul like that, but similar motion. So I was waiting with bated breath, knowing that even if tonight didn't go our way, that we were going to certainly need the services of Alex Caruso going forward. We're guaranteed 2 more games, might play 4 more. We'll see. But my main concern with that is now the precedent for the series. And like it or not, any official in that spot is going to think back to that call. You can switch the teams, the jerseys, the players, the roles, whatever. They're going to think, well, damn, it wasn't flagrant on Wednesday. And so now going forward, and I think after tomorrow night, I think that precedent kind of fades, but I'm expecting another game just like this. No team led by double digits the entire game. I think both teams led by 9. That was the peak of it. The Thunder was 15-6, and I think the Pacers, it ended by 9. So there you go. That's my only concern with that is things do linger in the NBA, and there's not too much ref turnover at this point because the top officials, or you can air quote that all you want, are the ones that get these stints and this opportunity. And I think they've done a pretty good job overall. I would say, if I was giving out a report card, I'd say B minus, but I think they've not been very involved, very noticeable. I did send a let them play text early in the first half because it felt like there were some whistles early, and I think the Pacers went into halftime with 3 starters with 3 fouls.
I think the first
Yeah.
3 plays had some kind of whistle.
It was right. It was a disservice to the environment, to the crowd, to the pace of play both these teams like to play in. And so as a fan, biased as I may be, I do enjoy basketball, and I don't enjoy side outs and free throws during NBA Finals games. If I think all right, seriously, I get that Shea does what Shea does. You can call it foul baiting. I don't necessarily.
There was
agree
one
with
that was really bad. I think exactly.
I mean, yeah, you didn't get the
Up into
call.
the guy,
I
and they
mean,
didn't call.
yeah.
I think it's the right call. I think it's the right
Which
thing to do there.
I'm completely okay with. If you set the tone of if you do this, this is not a foul, and it stays that way for everybody, perfect. Lay it down early. Let them know, hey, this worked Tuesday in March, not anymore. And that's fine. It's like when we send guys to go play FIBA and all of a sudden, Trey Young can't dive into someone and shoot a 35-footer and get free throws. Harden, Steph, Luka, Jokic, not that those guys are playing on Team USA necessarily, but you don't see a ton of free throws in the international competitions because those officials don't care. You have no leverage of. They're not going to change the way they officiate just because the American superstars or the superstars from the American League are there. And I think to an extent that gets established in the finals as well because these are the most watched NBA games. I don't know what the ratings are. I don't really care, honestly.
They're down.
Relative to the season, these are the most watched games, and you've got to officiate to the point where the hope is you don't realize they're there. They do what they have to do when they need to, when it's obvious. Now, if the Thunder had been down 2 and this happened, I would have been upset. But a little bit of me just kind of waving the white flag at that point, just seeing the Jalen Shea ISO trading crap that they did at the end of game 1. Jalen played excellent. Chet played largely excellent. Just
that
the
trio,
offense,
even if it was I've heard
70
people call it
points. It was,
if you laid that as your baseline, if you had said that if you had told me before this game that they'd have 70,
Mhm.
I mean, I guess I would have thought at least it was as close as it was, but it's the
I would have
fact
said we won.
it's the fact that your floor and your ceiling for an MVP is that much higher than everyone else's, and the fact that he played a C+ game for him, that's
Right.
kind of the where all that 70 kind of washes out if down the stretch it was the ISO stuff like you talked about.
Right, and that 70 took 53 shots. So
Yeah, that's tough.
that's the other issue is
I did like that Chet was more aggressive just in general, offensively.
absolutely.
The issue is I'm noticing now, I don't know what clicked last night, but very and he kind of has this demeanor anyway. But there's a couple times where late in the shot clock, Indiana did a great job of forcing him to have the ball with late in the shot clock for whatever reason. There was a couple of possessions I can recall, and he turns into a giraffe on ice skates. I don't
He
get
just
it.
forgets what he's doing. I don't understand
Or
it either.
they put him in a position and he's and you understand he's a 7-footer. He's not expected to know what to do in that situation.
No.
But when you're driving right constantly, and it gives Indiana a chance to steal it, and they did it multiple times in those situations. I do want to call back to the first thing you said in that entire open, and I think it's an interesting question. It's the thing that I actually wanted to get to before it even came up. So it actually works perfectly. You mentioned setting the precedent with that call. I actually think I don't know the answer, and that's why I want to ask: who benefits from the precedent of Game 4 being that way more?
Oh, I think Indianapolis, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
because I think their physicality has had more of an impact in the series overall.
Even though
Whether
you're
it's
the better
Nemhard,
defensive team and have been even in 3 games, I still don't deny the fact that the
oh,
Thunder have
yeah,
been the better defensive team without a doubt, but Indiana stepped up and made plays. So sometimes that
certainly. But
matters.
how do you bridge that gap if you're Indiana? You get physical, you toe the line, and you get as much as you can contact wise, and stopping ball, whatever it is. Whether it's Nemhard getting into Shea,
Which has worked a lot,
pressure on
by
J
the way.
Dub. Exactly. Pressure on
It's
J
crazy.
Dub, forcing him into bad decisions. He had a dribble pickup last night that I was like, that's something I would do playing pickup, which I don't do because I'm horrible at basketball. Um, I don't know who did it all 6 times, but inbounding to TJ McConnell, can we maybe not do that ever again?
Zach Lowe's calling this.
Um,
Apparently, this is a thing. Like Zach Lowe's calling
I
this
heard
a
that too.
TJ McConnell. I'm like, is this real? Where have I been for 4 years?
It
Like
made me want to rip my hair out
that second one was
when
really
he
bad.
looked like prime Richard Sherman because we're lazily inbounding the ball in a takeable road game in the NBA Finals. Now, one he just snagged out of the air because I think Caruso just in his brain, TJ McConnell was not standing
Oh
there.
yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. The second one was like, there's no
Yeah.
defending that whatsoever. He just popped it out
But
of
the
the air.
one where there's 3 guys standing in a 5-foot circle and 2 of them are staring, the other one's holding the ball apparently loosely. And again, TJ McConnell, not Shaquille O'Neal, TJ McConnell can just rip you for it. They turned a 4-point deficit into a tie game in 3 seconds with that.
It was crazy.
Um, that cannot happen. We had 19 turnovers. That can't happen. And I thought the frantic defense the Thunder put out in game 1, going smaller a good bit of it and forcing the 24 turnovers they did in a loss, it wasn't enough. I thought that set the tone as, all right, we know who the better defensive team is. We've known for a long time. This is proof of concept here. Heads up, no denying it now. But like I said, if you're Indiana, you've got to close that gap. The only way to do it with this Thunder team that's young and in this stage inexperienced, like Indiana is, but you've got to make them physically uncomfortable. And there is a different set of rules with contact. And I think Turner did get called for a moving screen, but unless you're Draymond and they just don't call it on you. There's things you can do to toe the line, push the envelope, and that will bridge the gap because you may not be playing the best defense, but mentally you're disrupting what the Thunder need to do on offense. And in the half court, I don't think we've looked good in the fourth quarter that mattered yet because we've lost both games that involved clutch minutes, shots, possessions, and we're not rim running. It gets kind of clunky. It almost reminded me of Durant Westbrook and was like, all right, whose ISO is it this time? And that team also did not win a championship. And I won't say they were expected to. And they got, I'd argue they were closer in 16 than they were in 2011, but that's a whole different deal. But it just gave me war flashbacks to watching 2 guys deciding who gets to hold the ball for 18 seconds, 3 guys watching, and the other of the duo just standing there to look involved-ish. It doesn't work. I'm sure Mark has gone hoarse over it watching the film of these games, because it's ultimately going to lose them the best chance they'll ever have at a title. Not to knock on Indy, but the East has served up better squads coming out of the conference in years past, and will continue to probably next year, even with the Tatum injury and a potential Giannis exit and a couple other things that we'll look over in the summer. But I think that, I mean, it was at the point I was almost annoyed at the Thunder got the title. Who cares? The East sucks. The Knicks and Pacers have no chance.
Hand up. That's on me.
Which I get, but it was just like, to me, I was, that's a long 4 wins away from a team that all they've heard for a week is you have no chance, get a home game, enjoy the summer, raise the East banner in October, and call it good. And I don't think the Knicks would have rolled over either. I think the Thunder would be up 3-0 in the Knicks right now. But I think that this Pacers team, that is the best thing they could have heard, was that they have no chance. They don't have the starters. They don't have the bench. They don't have the offense. They don't have the defense. They have nothing. They have a sneaky chance at a home game, and that's it. And they went into OKC in game 1, and they were outplayed for, I would argue, 46 minutes. But that last 2 minutes, as we've seen, that has gotten them here. stole them game one, got them home court, and the Thunder had every chance in the world last night to take home court back and didn't do it. So they've yet to lose back-to-back games this playoffs. If they do, the season's effectively over. If they lose tomorrow, I don't think they win game 6. I don't care what happens in game 5.
You have to win. You have to win a game in that building.
Yes, you have to, by virtue of game 1. And I just think mentally, psychologically, basketball got. I mean, I texted you with 8 minutes left that we were trying to decide to do it last night or today. I was like, hey,
yeah,
the Thunder are going to lose. Let's do this tomorrow. Let me sleep on it. Which I found I sleep better after Thunder finals wins. But
that was at 10:53.
So call me a pessimist, call me a cynic, whatever, a masochist, whatever you want to say. 1, told you so. 2, having watched this team for closer to 20 years than 15, you just kind of know, and you feel it in the building, you see it on the court. And we've got guys, doubled over, heaving on the bench and the fourth. And I get it's more of an intensity thing than a cardio thing. But when the team from Indiana, which when I think of Indiana, I think flat. Like, what are we doing? And we got all these West Coast guys, and I think we saw it a bit from J-Dub in the Denver series, who's a little bit more up to the altitude. But that image and that body language, I didn't love it. I can never speak to what that experience is like, and the physicality and the mental fortitude it takes to be composed for 2 hours on that stage. But I'm glad we don't have the extra day, because I would rather just immediately flush it, take a day, get your legs back, and then it's game day. Not, another 6 hours of Shea has to step up on first take and all this other garbage that circulates.
It builds a tenseness too. These guys are still young. Like, let's be honest. Like
exactly. It's less time to ruminate. You can't think about it.
Correct. Yeah. You're not
you go to sleep. You wake up. You practice. You wake up. It's game day. There's no more stressing about it. Oh, I could have done this. What if this passed? This cut? Whatever the film provides. But if we lose another fourth quarter by 14 points, we're certainly losing that game. And I think Indy is plus 27 between the 3 fourth quarters. Now, in game 2, it was TJ McConnell scoring points like he was getting paid $1 million per point when it was a 19-point game. But still, that told me more about him and Indy than anything. The fact that the game was decided, he was like, I do not care. I think he had 7 points in the last 2 minutes. He was just up and down. Give me the ball. I'm scoring. I don't care. Statistically, the game was over. Nobody was out. The guys they would need to make that comeback were not on the floor anymore. But he played to the final buzzer. So I think that carried over a bit into game 3, because I know Mathurin poured in the points, but I think the impact that McConnell had and keying to that crowd, that was excellent. I think he did so much more impacting the game. Obviously, Mathurin, you get 27 from him.
22 minutes.
Yeah, that'll play. He's probably plus 20 and plus minus 2.
16.
And it was, every shot profile you could think of. He was getting to the free throw line, I think he split 1 pair of free throws, but
7 of 8. Right on.
Yeah. So just thinking back to, and I hate that I remember all those, but I mean, it's
people are going to call this Nick Mathurin game, which, by the way, that was something I
said
that they were going to. I think you're spot on though with TJ. I think TJ was arguably the reason this game changed and really kind of got them into their grip into the third and fourth quarter that they really are comfortable in. I mean, I told you, I think the Benedict Mathurin game, like, I didn't think it was going to come this quickly, but I knew it was going to happen eventually, whether it was this series or down the road. I was like, they're going to have to get him into, because it gets to him. It can be a little ball stoppy, but when you're scoring 27 and 22, I don't think that they really care at that point, because this team is incredible.
No.
Like, they're not, that's part of the fourth quarter formula. I think you mentioned the ISO, the stuff that Shea and Jalen got into. They really don't allow that to happen. Obviously it's different when your point guard doesn't want the ball in a good way.
Right.
But these guys all, like, I mean, talk about being a unit. Like, they just, outside of Mathurin, like, whoever has the ball, like, it's either coming back to that person in a couple of seconds or they're only having it for 3 seconds at a time, and guys are getting really good with being off the ball. Because even a guy like Neesmith, the foul aside, he was at least impactful. I know he's only +1, but like 7 points, he had 6 fouls.
Buried that corner three.
Yeah,
That put him up 8.
made the big
That
one.
was essentially, in my eyes, that was the if this wasn't the finals, I turned the game off. But
I don't necessarily think this was the solution that I had said though. Like I was like, oh, you have to feed Siakam. That has to be it, because part of my
they
problem.
did it early.
They did, and they know how to put him in spaces that he's going to succeed. That's there's no denying that. The only thing is, and I'll say this is definitely a positive for Game 4 for the Thunder, is that that was the first home game in the finals for the Pacers for this group ever. Also, the first one since 2000.
Right.
The TJ McConnells, Obi Toppins, and Benedict Mathuns are going to play better at home. They just are. Like, it's not an excuse. It's just that's going to be something that you have to think about. And do I think that they can replicate that in Game 4? Yeah, I think that's why there's an immense amount of pressure to play this game in 48 hours instead.
Right.
The other thing, though, that I think concerns me on the flip side, maybe it's a spin. Maybe we can spin this positively. I don't know. When both teams shoot less than 33s in a game, I feel like that's a game the Thunder have to win. I know that they're a good 3-point shooting team.
Especially when the Thunder shoot 45% with their limited attempts.
But the fact that you have the people that I think would succeed better in a game like that, and you don't capitalize on it, I wonder if that's something that gets in their head in Game 4. Maybe it's something that they can learn from and adjust. It's just concerning because when you do that and you're shooting that less than threes, you think the two big lineup would be working, but they've like completely abandoned it. Like it's over, it's done.
They've gone away from it.
It's gone. Like not coming back, and it's not an advantage at this point. And if you have to trust Mark that that's not coming back, so I wonder if the 3-point variance is something that maybe the Thunder say, okay, we're going to be the team that makes it to 50 attempts first, and maybe that's something. But do you want to rely on that? That's the problem.
No, with the way they've shot all playoffs from 3, no.
They're I said this to someone the other day. I think I told you. Maybe we said it live.
Yeah, we did. Game 1.
They're the 12th best team in the playoffs, and if they're the 8th, I think. Like if they're the 8th best shooting percentage, if you just take their 12th place spot in the playoffs coming into the finals and make it 8th, I think they sweep the Pacers. Like I don't think it's like done.
They sweep the Pacers. They beat Denver in 5. They still beat Minnesota in 5. Their Game 3 was. I don't think the Thunder realized there was a game that day, but ultimately didn't matter. And I think people saw that Minnesota series and thought, okay, well, at worst, I don't think Indy's that much better than Minnesota. So let's turn the oranges into apples and say, all right, well, if the Thunder beat Minnesota like this, even giving up a 40-point loss or what felt like a 100-point loss in Game 3, surely that will play out the exact same way. And that just adds to my point of 8 billion people in the world, and there's about 30 people that thought the Pacers were going to win, and they're all in that locker room.
They believe it. Fans, obviously. 100%. They believe it.
Yeah, and it's. I was talking about. I think before the Minnesota series is Anthony Edwards is not the best player on the court, but he thinks he is, and that's almost worse for the Thunder.
I was going to say worse for who?
Is more powerful. That belief is more powerful than reality, because any other team would not have believed they would have come back from down 9 with 2:40 left in OKC. Indy did. It's the only reason they came back and won.
To be fair, they don't make any of these comebacks if they don't believe in themselves, much less the fact that they are doing it on the biggest stage in Game 1. If they can do that in Game 1 and believe that they can do that, they're playing with house money.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I think obviously Game 4 must win. These all feel like must wins. But I mean, at this point, the Pacers have won 2 games, and it's feasible to explain away both of them. But if you can explain away 2, we can probably explain away 4. So I don't think that we're going to get a dominant Pacers wire-to-wire victory like Minnesota picked up, like Denver picked up, 1 each. I don't think we get that. I just don't. I think that the gap between these two teams just speaks to if the Pacers are going to win games, it's going to take frantic efforts very late or just a concerted effort to entirely capture the fourth quarter and win that. Because when Jalen hit that 3, I was like, that's the first thing I'm going to talk about with Trevor. And then I watched the first like 90 seconds, 2 minutes of the fourth, and then I texted you. And I was like, that's it. It's over. That was our shot. Not that a 5-point lead with 15 seconds left is a win against this team, but when you give it up that quick and then you flip to playing from behind for extended periods, which they had not done this entire series, it's a different mindset. And I think they almost turtle shelled into, we have 19 seconds. This is Shai's ISO. We have 18 seconds. This is Jalen's ISO. And, they individually on paper played well, combined for 50 points. Great. But they were also 18 of 38 shooting. So, you can look at that a couple different ways. Shai with 6 turnovers, that's inexcusable as an MVP. And that speaks to where the bar is that he has set for himself. 19 as a team is bad. 6 from the best player on the floor is
to go with 4 assists too. That's the part.
Right. And the 8 rebounds, great. I couldn't tell you when a single one happened. All the contested rebounds went to Toppin and other guys. So it's a problem. And I got the box score pulled up. Chet was 0 for 6 from 3. So if you take him out, the Thunder were 10 of 16, and still lost the game. So I don't know that. I did mention after game 2 that if he would have the opportunity to take more threes and make them, and they win the series, that the bleak Finals MVP case would present itself. But I think that door has been slammed shut. So I don't know.
It's far-fetched to think that Alex Caruso might be the second best chance now. That's the craziest.
I don't know. Not after last night. He played 32 minutes.
I actually want to talk about that. So I have like somewhat of a thought process prepared for this, but like things are just going to come to you after 20. I think 24 hours of dissolving this actually helped a lot. I don't know how to say this, right? I don't want to sound as unbiased as humanly possible, right? I think the Thunder are the better team, and I think you replay this series 9 times more, and I think they win 8 of them. I'm pretty concerned in a couple of areas that I haven't even addressed yet, on top of the other ones. When you get this deep in the playoffs, your rotations shrink. Your rotation already has shrunk after game. Like after game 2, your rotation shrunk. You played 7 guys basically.
Wiggins was 10 minutes, but yeah.
I'm not. Every time they put him on the floor, Indiana seemed like they got up excited about that. So there's nothing against him.
Not good last night.
But Indiana played 9 guys legit deep. And obviously, as we know, the second most minutes of those guys had 27. So the part I'm concerned about is, as much as I love Mark Daigneault, Rick Carlisle knows what he's doing. And for him to play 9 guys and know how to strategize those minutes effectively, we saw in game 3, it was probably the most executed bench this playoffs, of just like when to put guys in, how to execute the minutes. And Mark's going to have to coach his behind off, because as soon as Nembhard leaves the floor, Shai needs to be on the floor, because that's like clearly a disadvantage to him right now. And so this is why I don't get paid whatever Mark gets paid, but this is going to be really difficult. Like, they went off Nesmith quickly because he wasn't making threes, wasn't getting to the spot. Really wasn't super. He obviously had some fouls early too that really helped. But as soon as they went to other guys, Obi stepped up in those minutes. Benedict Mathurin, we've already talked about. Ben Shepherd played 18 minutes, and he was a ghost. But he's a body that I would trust.
Though. Right. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm really interested to see, not to wave the I told you so flag every single game so far, and I've been right. But the script tells me that, like, the bench minutes and the way the Thunder are going to have to, they're either going to have to play the 2 big lineup, or they're going to have to play Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, like legit real 18 plus minutes. Some of these games, if they go
at least
deep,
a quarter. Yeah.
And I'm not sure either of them are going to happen. So I'm not sure what Mark's going to do.
No, we're going to have some sort of, I wouldn't say unsung, for at least not with an OKC, because I mean, guys like Caruso and Wiggins step up. We've seen it all year, but for that to be plan A is a problem. Especially if, like you said, 70 from the big three is not enough, and we're turning the ball over 19 times. Some of those passes last night, not even just the inbound stuff, but I would not have told you the Thunder were playing basketball. That is just some of the, I'll say, NBA lazy passes, like, and some of the, fast breaks, you're moving quick, you're going to screw things up. That's fine. The Pacers did it a couple times too. That kind of washed out. But just some of the passing and forcing it, and I don't know how many turnovers. Okay, 4 for Jalen. I mean, that I would have said was more than that, but I, at least 4. I don't know if I could really explain to you what went through his head of like, this is the productive outcome of this ball leaving my hand, because the turnovers he had were awful. And I think that's going to have to change because, I mean, shot 45% from 3, great, on 22 attempts. That kind of speaks to how weird this game was because both teams combined for south of 50. And we've seen single teams shoot 50 by themselves um, much earlier in the playoffs. But just the way the NBA is going, that is an anomaly. And the way they've been shooting all playoffs, I think that's an advantage for Indy. They didn't shoot well at all from 3, and they won the game, protected home court, unlike OKC, and here they are with the definition of a gravy game at home, game 4. Nothing to lose, a vice grip on the championship to gain, and I don't think that. I never expected the Thunder to be in this position. I figured maybe at worst case, you go up 2-0, you come back 2-2, and then you're still playing 2 in Oklahoma City. And that was like, the nuclear option. But they've got to win to see daylight, essentially. I think they'll win game 5 either way. It's just a question of, is it ultimately going to matter? Because if they lose game 4, I don't think they win game 6. And I really can't quantify that with any kind of data or statistics or anything else. But like you said, we've been watching the game for a long time. We've watched plenty of playoffs and plenty of finals, and series have a certain dynamic at any stage in the playoffs where you can kind of just tell. And a big red flag is obviously you go down 3 games to 1. If you're not LeBron James, you're probably in trouble.
Well, that's even why that's even bigger reason the bench thing scares me. Like,
because what if they better team, worse performance again in game 4, and then it's like, okay, that's 3 explainable losses, but you're going to have to explain to people in 20 years how in the hell this team did not win a title. When you put these rosters side by side and the stats and the all the advanced analytics, all the stuff, because it all points one way, and that team is down 2-1.
I want to talk a couple big picture things because we've crossed 30 minutes. And I think that's how the last 15 minutes winds down typically. I don't want to look too far forward because, like, you hear guys all the time be like, let's talk about the series, big picture stuff when it's over. In the content game, let's do it now. Part of it is tying into a point. If there was ever a game to take advantage of somebody's performance here, Turner was horrid offensively would be an understatement, and yet the 5 blocks make up for all of it.
And they were all late. He sealed the game. He erased any chance of a comeback.
So it's like, okay, maybe game plan to take advantage of him going at him in the game 4. I'm not sure that's the answer either. I don't know. Again, my hands are up on that part. Like, if it's best player, Duke, and that's basically what they did. As the ticker goes across here for YouTube, like, those 2 guys were the best 2 guys on the floor. Even with the points not being, a big jump off point for Tyrese. He was 1 rebound away from a triple double. I do want to talk about Myles Turner for a second. This is going to sound really crazy. He's a guy that's been in the same spot for a really long time. Let me pull up the exact year, so I'm not just like talking out of my what. But he's a guy that, like, they've, the rumors, whether they are true or not, he's been there since 2016. He was drafted there, right? Fifth in defensive player of the year, right? Like, gets brought up in trade machine all the time, but like, he truly has embraced Indiana. Indiana's embraced him. 5th in defensive player of the year in 2018-19. He led the league that year in blocks. Led the league in 2020, 2021 in blocks as well. This is a guy, I'm not like pushing his legacy and trying to figure out like how this would change the propaganda of the way we talk about Myles Turner. But like, let's be honest, he's unless he gets some dumb contract at the end of his career, he's probably not playing anywhere else again. Like he's made
I
it
wouldn't
past
think
that
so.
point. Like if you win a
Yeah.
title with Indiana, maybe that changes things. But like, I don't really have it's. I remember an open-ended question, but like, this has to like completely change the way we look at Miles Turner as a pacer all time. He wins a title, obviously, changes how the fact they've never won one, and the
Right.
fact that he's been there so long and he's been such a mainstay in every phase of how this team's built up to potentially winning a title. It's just an open-ended thought. I don't really have a way I'm going to land the plane. I'm just curious if you had ever thought about the fact that Miles Turner's legacy is actually kind of interesting now that it's been laid out and he has a chance on the doorstep of winning a championship.
I mean, if you exclude James Johnson, it's he and McConnell are the most service years guys on the team. And I think that if you look back to like, you know, I won't say cornerstone with respect to why the team is there, but as far as like the team being built the way it was and having dependable pieces that were there for the long haul, regardless of how many times they were paired with the Celtics in the trade machine for 4 years. I think that it's very important. It's very rare. We saw Durant get to the doorstep, turned away twice, ultimately left for championships that no one respects. And so I think it's just so incredibly rare, and increasingly so as time goes on, for guys to stick it out and to, on both sides of the equation, the guy wanting to stay in town and the team having the wherewithal and the capability to keep him there. I think it would be an excellent piece for the NBA to harp on, be like, hey, look, this guy put a decade in, head down, worked hard. What better city to do that in? And it came out as a champion. And a team, a franchise did not reach that point, and I don't know that they'd be here without him. They don't need the points, but they need the blocks. They absolutely do, especially with the matchup of OKC where Shea lives in the paint, and we had to a point a too big lineup that was devastating. And they've kind of neutralized that, and Shea's not been himself to the 3 games. So I think that if you're looking at, and he's not going to win Finals MVP or anything, but as far as like biggest reasons why the Pacers are here and why they're halfway to a title, I think he's a lot higher on that list than you would probably think.
I mean, he's played
And
almost 700 games in his career. Like the end of next season would be over
yeah,
700 games in his career. One franchise, 14 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game, 50, almost 50, 37, 77 splits from his career for the same franchise, two-time block champion. Like again, I know it's not like the resume thing, but it's the fact that like a guy like that doesn't win a championship for a team that long into his tenure anymore. I just wonder
no,
if
it's
there's
pretty
like a bigger
rare.
picture. Hey, like this is a guy that's like we may remember him a lot more fondly because of this championship, potentially.
100%. I mean, he's a statue candidate. Honestly, as absurd as that sounds on its face, I think you put in the time served and the legacy he's set up for himself, and if they do take this championship, I think he's going to be lauded correctly as one of the better Pacers of all time, impact wise. Not necessarily statistically. And I'd be interested to see either way. I was already thinking about it coming into this even conference finals, because I didn't realize he was a free agent um,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. So I don't know how that's going to go. Do the Lakers give him like the equivalent of the Mozgov deal and just call it good? And if you ever pay by 15 million, but if you win a title as a Laker, then no one remembers the overpays. That's a drastic example of his options, but I think if he wins a title, there will be more suitors, and that may not make sense because his game has nothing to do with what you should be bringing in people for. But having that to his name and that impact, and thinking I can bring in an NBA champion, that adds to the bag he's going to get, and whether Indy is willing or able to match that with this apron stuff that whoever's in the room for the players clearly didn't understand what the players needed out of the CBA.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that I'm going to be very interested to see where he lands. I genuinely root for guys to stay put, especially guys that have had the level of impact he has. So whether I don't think I'll end up ever turning on a Pacers game or ever to hate watch Myles Turner. I don't.
No,
Draymond, sure. Clay, sure. Steph, absolutely. But he's going to be one of those guys that I think for himself and his personal finances and whatever you want to call that, he is peaking as an asset because if you need 25 points from him, I wouldn't sign him. But if you need 2-3 blocks a game, you need that anchor defensive interior presence. Look no further. It's a very shallow free agent class, which is why I said Lakers, because they tend to overpay and overreact when the pool gets shallow with respect to free agents. And they have the most obvious hole or just void of any team that's even a pulse of a contender, I think, as far as their center issues. So who better to fill that than Myles Turner? Because with LeBron and Luka, you don't need to score. That's the last thing they need from you.
you think the Derek Lively rim running lobs was
Yeah,
exciting? I mean, granted, he's a younger, more athletic guy, but
sure. And hopefully
Turner's
he's
reaching.
back to full health for Dallas. But
I'm in no way validating or propping up the fact this was worth 10 minutes, but I think statistically he's actually going to be remembered way more fondly than we're even giving him credit for right now. I'd like to play the win share game again.
deservedly so.
I think we did this recently with somebody with like on Basketball Reference. They have the top 12 guys in the franchise, and it's win shares.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember who it was, but here
it
we
was
are.
Perkins,
Kendrick.
I think.
Oh yeah, maybe. I would like to play the Indiana Pacer win share game. Who do you think is first all time in win shares? Don't overthink this, please.
Paul George.
No.
Or Larry Bird. You said don't overthink it, so I thought modern immediately.
All time Pacer?
Should have said TJ McConnell.
Well, at Larry Bird, I forgive you for even
Yeah.
it's a possibility.
Hibbert.
Do you know how win shares work? You want me to go over that again?
I mean, I have a general understanding of it. I'm not very deep in the
it's Reggie
Pacers.
Miller. All right, like,
well, yeah, that was.
Right. We'll start there. All right, Reggie Miller.
I called him Grant Hill, and then I forgot who he was. So that's
174.4. So, like, you play that long, you win that many games. Duh, right?
No, sure.
A couple guys that photos are in black and white. And I'll just be upfront about that. Roger Brown. By the way, the next guy has over half less. So we're talking 60s. Roger Brown, Dale Davis, Rick Smits, Mel Daniels, Billy Knight, Vern Fleming, 8th, Myles Turner.
That doesn't surprise me.
Ahead of the likes of, ready for this, Danny Granger, Jeff Foster, Jermaine O'Neal, and Paul George. So I'm glad we did the Myles Turner corner for a minute because it's a guy that even if they lose this finals, it's a guy that Pacers fans, because I think the general temperature, did they want him gone at any point in the last 6 years?
I think there was so much purported interest that it would have happened. Well, I think the market was there to the point somebody would. It might not have been the Celtics, like we all said for 4 summers and 3 deadlines, but someone would have had a chance to be like, hey, if you give us 105 cents on the dollar, he's on a plane.
Fair, yeah. Which that wasn't. So, I think that's part of the reason he didn't get moved was because of that.
Yeah, and I think they intrinsically thought more of him than maybe the league as a whole thought of him, which worked out because here he is in the finals, and there are no more, at least Eastern Conference teams still going. So
I was convinced when the Pascal Siakam trade dropped that okay, well, Turner's the piece that goes with him. Like it's a swap for those two and everything else. And it was reminding you Bruce Brown, Kira Lewis, Jordan Nwora, and a war chest of picks. Safe to say that was
Bruce Brown was spotted on a court. I mean, remember
how much we talked about him for like the last that whole
Yes.
run, we're like, wow, man, this is a guy. Like, this is a playoff. Like, it's crazy how things change. I bring up the trade only because, like, Indiana, that has to be the best, like, what if Indiana history. Like, what if we included Myles Turner in that deal because that was the asking price at one point, I'm sure.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I mean,
Probably
they're
not here
not
right
here
now.
now. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
there you go. We're on the same page about that.
Yeah.
All right, flip side of the big picture thing here. If the Thunder hypothetically lose this series in the next 5, 6, or 7, doesn't matter, your pick. Big picture, is it like, does the panic meter rise 20% more than you thought it was at this point? Being the fact that they are on the older side of young?
I mean, no, obviously you'd like to get Chet and Jalen taken care of this summer, and people forget, Usman Jing is also in that draft class.
Wow, I forgot about you're 100% right. I forgot about that.
So,
wow.
It's great when you draft two studs and a role player in the same draft, except for in 3 years, then they all want a lot of money. And speaking specifically about Chet and Jalen, they both played it to that point. And Jalen picked a great time to make All NBA. So that's going to be a very uncomfortable time to be Sam Presti because everyone's going to think they need the 4-year, $285 million supermax or whatever it is. The history of this team tells me that the second apron is going to impact them more than any other franchise, regardless of where the dollars are and how much room they have. This team traded James Harden 4 months after a finals appearance because they did not want to pay the tax. Sam Presti's ability to maneuver the roster and assets through trades has gotten them to this point with this roster. And if you eclipse the second apron, that really, really, really limits you and your ability to do that. Plus, once you're up over that threshold, it's pretty hard to get underneath it. You really can't dump salary at that point. It's very hard to maneuver back down, and then you got to start talking repeater tax and other scary terms that we haven't really seen come to term yet. As new as this is, it's why the Celtics are going to trade somebody beloved to that franchise this summer, new ownership or not. I think Porzingis, Drew Holiday, potentially Derek White, one or two of those three is not going to be with the Celtics opening night in any capacity. So I would say 30% because, like I said earlier, this is the best chance they had to win a title relative to their opponent. Not that Indiana is not worthy. Clearly, we've established that through 3 games, unfortunately.
It's about the West you have to
is
get through in the next 5 years.
correct. Victor Wembanyama is going to be playing next year. With
a shaved head, and apparently, like, is trained to be a monk.
He's a monk now. I don't know. I hope, and I really do hope he plays a full season next year. We get to see his impact and his growing into the superstardom we've all set him up for, and Castle and the number 2 overall pick they have. And we'll see if they keep it here in the next 3 weeks. But this is their best chance to win a title. This Pacers team would be by far the most improbable team to ever win a title, which speaks not to their lack of quality as a team, but they are not supposed to be here. And there will not be a team labeled that in the finals again for history tells us 10 to 15 years, probably. At least.
Dallas, 2011, was that the last one?
Probably. I mean, didn't Memphis go up on the Warriors in 15 in the Western Conference Finals? 2-1, 3.
But to be here, I mean, like,
no, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. To actually be here, before that, maybe Detroit, but then they won. So I don't.
Yeah. So we're talking, once a decade at best here. So as far as getting through the West, I won't say as easily as they did. They played 9 games in 2 series and went 7 one time. If you get through the West in 16 games, that's pretty good. That's not likely to happen again, just with how spread out the talent is because, and God forbid Giannis ends up out West. I would hope the soul of David Stern would rise up and prevent that from happening. But I
still can't believe Chris Paul thing.
yeah. So that's something that's going to keep Thunder fans in front office up at night. So just getting through the West in the fashion they did, got taken to Game 7 by the best player in the world. Happens.
I think you're right about the apron, though. Like, I think that really constricts the window. I think it takes the window and it shrinks it very quickly.
It has closed the window for teams that have no idea it's already closed.
That's the problem. Is like, I want to give the benefit of the doubt of, like, again, Indy, I understand, older, more experienced. Pascal Siakam's already won it. Myles Turner, we just established 10, 11-year guy. Even Halliburton's now been in the league quite a while, moved around to a couple teams. Like, they all have stories of, like, prototypical championship stories where it's like, okay, here's this team that did it a couple times, but this is their first time here for both teams. So I throw that argument out the window. The only thing is, though, like, they're still young enough and they're still talented enough and they're still cheap enough that they, being the Thunder in this case, that, like, it wouldn't be the first thing I said on June 22nd if they lost the series. It wouldn't be the first thing I said, but then, like, within a couple of weeks, I'd be like, well, they'll probably be back here. Then again, we said the same thing about 2012. And so I keep bringing that up because right now I'm with you. If you have a chance to lay everything out and beat a team that, quite frankly, as awesome as they've been, the Thunder were one of the best statistical teams in NBA history. I'm talking like top 15,
top 10, easy,
top 10. Yeah. I'd have to really dig. I've heard it. I believe
that,
but but the fact that they're in this vein and the fact that they're playing Indiana, who, if either team won the championship, I think it's a great story. I think that's the coolest thing about this whole.
Yeah, that's true too.
I'm not like, okay, like one story was worse than the other, but usually the best team wins an NBA championship.
Almost every time.
Which is kind of crazy to even think
90% of the time. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really have an open-ended here, but it's scary because of the second apron thing that we're still figuring out.
Yeah, and you're the reward for teams now with homegrown talent and draft classes in succession that perform well, and you could point out where the Thunder were picking, like, yeah, duh, but go look what the Sixers were doing a decade ago. You think the picks just mean you're going to get it right? No. Or you could be in a draft like last year where you nail it. You're looking at a sixth man on it.
Joel Embiid's the only reason the process isn't like this thing that should be frowned upon and doomed to history.
I mean, he's also the reason it's starting to,
But the point is, it's not a complete and utter, let's make sure we burn this from league record.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's a couple Duke guys they plucked that, Jesus Christ.
Does the name Tony Roten mean anything to you? I watched some of those games. It was bad.
Ugh. Yeah, and they went like 6-70 when the lottery wasn't a thing and the odds weren't flat, and then they traded for one and they got that wrong too. So again, moving past Sam Hinkie's violent death, but I think that, like I said earlier, the accumulation and distribution of assets throughout this team, player wise and salary wise and all the picks and everything else, like, it becomes so much more difficult to maneuver the same way the Thunder have for the last, I don't know how long Presti's been there, long enough to build this. And then it's like, okay, you made it to a finals, got really close. God forbid they lose the series. It's like, cool, you're going to shell out $500 million in extensions this offseason. Or you can get scapegoated for basically running back the Harden thing where it's like, oh, that bill's not going to fly with the Bennett family. And then we're talking stupid trades all over again. And there's a guy sitting in Jeremy Lamb's shoes. He's the most hated man in an entire state. So I think that
that's trying to fund a new arena too. Isn't that like a thing right now? Isn't there like a tax on the arena right now?
I think they just demolished the old one today, which is ominous. But I think that, so I think the reality hitting hard of this window is not a 5-6 year, like, win 3 or 4 right off into the sunset with Shea, Chet, Dort, J-Dub, etc., being 35 years old in Thunder jerseys. I mean, the cap at that point will be $4 billion. But I think that just the timing of the extensions and where we are with restriction that, if you pay people, you get penalized, whether you Ishbia them in or you draft them in, or you like Boston bringing in Drew and bringing in Derek White, where they were already pretty much developed, but they've thrived in their roles with that team. And now one of them is going to have to get voted off like Survivor because they are not going to pay that bill. And so I'm going to be watching very carefully what Boston does this summer, because I don't think the Thunder are very far away from a situation like that. And I don't think there's anything to stop it, which is why, to your point, you laid out right now, you win right now. If people look back and say, hey, you won a title, it was the Pacers. Like, I will sleep soundly for the rest of my life if the rebuttal to a Thunder championship is like, yeah, but it was Halliburton. Yeah, it was the Pacers.
That's the
Fine.
thing.
Go back and watch those
The
games.
goalposts will move historically. Like that's
Exactly. And that happens to all the great teams. We did it with Boston a year ago.
Yep. And they were dominant just the same. So
yes.
Yeah. All right. We got 5 minutes ish out of here. I brought this up and I kind of want to do it now. We have nothing else to talk about for this game. So game 4 will be interesting. I mentioned some of the bench stuff. Carlisle's going to coach his behind off, and Mark's going to have to be better. And it's crazy to even think that's a real statement. I kind of want to play did the best team win the championship game? Not like we're not plucking apart all 16 teams every year. Let's not do that. Let's just do the 2 teams that played in the finals.
Okay.
You can use your memory if you'd like. If not, I'm using the basketball reference page, NBA, ABA champions. Last year, the better team won. Let's move on.
Yes.
2023, Denver beat Miami. We've done 3 years of these now, and we've done 10 pods combined already. So
I'll never ask for a longer series again. Ever.
Yeah, right. I mean, we did 10 combined the last 2 years. Let's call those series what they were. I would like to have so 22 Golden State beat Boston.
The better team did not win that championship.
Do you really believe that, bias aside?
I believed it then. I believe it now.
All right, let's do this now. But let me click, because I think we're gonna after basically this decade, this last 10 years, we start this. We're gonna be done after that. So Boston, let's just go over this. Boston was 51-31. That was the Ime Udoka. That was basically the flip script on January 2nd. Like I brought that record up every time. Like, and I did pods with you, Josh, whoever back then. And every single month I would go, hey, you realize the Boston Celtics have won 18 games and they've lost 2? Like, I would just literally bring up this stat every time, and it just kept getting better. And so, all right, they were first, they were 7th in offensive rating. They were 2nd in defensive rating. Holy cow. They were 2nd in net rating. That was Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, Al Horford. I'm trying to sort by guys that have actually played minutes. It's hard to do that on here when you're looking at the full team. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Dennis Schroeder, Al Horford. Derek White was the 7th best scorer on that team. Wow. Josh Richardson, Grant Williams, Daniel Tice. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I mean, look at that team now 3 years later.
But that year, were they the better team than the Warriors? Probably.
I think they were.
They had the defensive player of the year. They had an all-star, all-NBA first-team guy, all-defensive first-team guy, all-defensive second-team guy. Jaylen Brown didn't get any vote for anything that season. It's interesting. Not a single vote for any award. I love looking back on NBA history. This is the part I love about this. All right. I think I would lean with you on that one. Because that series at least went to 6. It basically took a Curry, like, we're playing a video game 20 years from now, and that Curry game is like a scene.
There was that one, I don't know which game it was, but there was a game late, and I was watching it with the biggest Celtics fan I know. And just watching, it was as painful for him as game 1 was for any Thunder fan. It's just like, you could feel it, but like, man, how did that one get away?
It was game 4, I believe, in TD. It was 3 or 4.
It was. So that's how that ended up going how it did.
That series specifically, like, I mean, it did a lot for different legacies on the winning side. So I think that's.
Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah.
Milwaukee Phoenix. This is actually the one I thought we'd talk about longer. I think
I was so convinced after game 2 that series was over.
Oh, I don't know about all. Yes, I'm with you. Then in the moment,
Not in 4, but all intents and purposes being the Suns were going to be the NBA champion. Chris Paul will get a championship. Devin
they were the better
Booker
team. I don't think it's a
validated.
debate.
I think they were too. I
It's
think
crazy.
the individual greatness of Giannis, similar to Steph Curry, pushed them across the finish line. I think Chris Middleton had like a 40-point game or something absurd like that.
I think it was the clincher, either the clincher or game 5. Yeah.
Maybe it was 50. I don't know. There was a couple like just statistically crazy individual performances in that series, and a lot of them went Milwaukee's way. But I would say that the Suns were the better team.
So we argued the fact that normally the better team wins, and we are 50-50 right now. We are split down the middle of the last 4 seasons.
As long as we don't add to it this year, I will be wrong.
But it's real parity. That's the thing. It's real parity. Each of these years was individually unique. This changes very quickly. I really believe that 2020 Lakers team might have been one of the more talented teams in the last 10 years to win a championship. If you really look at how deep, like Dwight Howard, some of that stuff. I think we remember it obviously in a weird manner because of Mickey Mouse and because of
the fact that stuff. I don't
were.
I
know. We've never joked about it because it is what it is. Call it what it is. But they won in a really weird and almost arguably harder environment, depending on who you ask.
I would argue harder. Yes, I would.
All right. We're in agreement there. They were miles better than Miami, even though Miami took them to 6, which is crazy.
That was the surprise of the series, is that we had a game today.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Butler just like absolutely hit a wall, which you could tell. 2019 Toronto Golden State. I think I changed my opinion on this the further and further we get away. I think Toronto was better because
I think they were
built to win a championship. They were deep.
Yes,
they had guys like Fred VanVleet who won them the series. Like it's weird to think that I'm just going to click on their Warriors page here. It's weird to think that let me try to get down to the scores again. Durant, Clay, Steph, Draymond, and then DeMarcus Cousins, Iggy at that point, old Iggy, 35 Iggy. Funny to bring up DeMarcus Cousins after what happened this week. 22-year-old Kevon Looney. This team was terrible outside of those 4 guys.
That was the thing, is they were only as deep as the
4.
Right.
All right.
They struggled to put a 6th or 7th guy in the game that was ready for that stage and ready to play at that level.
OG Anunoby was the 8th leading scorer on this team.
See, I forget he started there all the time. I know he got traded in like 23.
I know it's not all about scoring, but like the 8th guy, kind of a dope team if you ask me. Jeremy Lin was the 9th best scorer on that team. Just kidding. He's right up order. I don't know why. Well, OG Anunoby is actually the 10th scorer on this team if you do it by that standard. The fact that Jeremy Lin was even popping up on this list is crazy. I forgot he was on that team. He got a ring, so shout out to him for that.
Too.
All right, we'll keep going. These are going to get gross because it's the same 4 teams for 8 years. Golden State 2018, they were the better team. That's arguably one of the best teams ever. Yeah. 2017, they were the best team.
Yeah.
They swept. That was the sweep year. I believe. Yes. No, 2018 was the sweep year.
Shout out J.R. Smith. Yeah.
2016. Did I don't know. I feel like Golden State was the best team for 4 straight years, if I'm being honest. They were the best team. They won 3 of the 4.
I think if you look back, and this is not me saying this, I think people will tell you of the conference finalists of that season, the Thunder were the best team in the NBA.
But we're doing the exercise of the 2 teams.
I got to sneak that in there. But with respect to just the 2, after Klay Thompson's voodoo out-of-body experience, I still think it was Cleveland. I think that is maybe the closest.
Just pick which year, because at this point, it's Golden State was the best team at least 2 of the 4 years.
I think 16. I think they have a better team.
So Cleveland 16, and that's it. So 3 for 1 there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Out of the entire, the saga, I think that was the only year. Because then Durant decided that he would swing the pendulum a little bit.
Yeah, because if you do just per game stuff again,
well, 17 on it's pretty. Well, 17, 18 it was clear. 19 and we covered that. So
J.R. Smith's your fourth best scorer. Dante Jones played one game, so I can't count that. He had 13 in that game. They put him on here. Kevin Love, I think, was still that 2016 year of Kevin Love. Arguably, I think was one of the bigger reasons they won the series. Tristan Thompson played 82 games that year too, and he just was consistent. And he was really good big. It was definitely an older, weirder, deeper bench than we realized looking back. Like Mo Williams was still on that team, which is insane.
They had some just absolute names.
Mo Williams, Tristan Thompson, Channing Frye, Dellavedova, and Mozgov were the guys off the bench. That doesn't even count Shumpert Jefferson, who played some really big minutes in the finals. Jordan McRae, by the way, who I believe is a multiple-time NBA champion at this point.
Yeah, he won a couple in a row. That was McCall.
But either way, like that, I may be with you on that one because 2016 Golden State was, people think of it like this. It was the Draymond kick. It was the fact that they were super, like we thought of them so in 2015, we felt like they were ahead.
Right.
It'd be kind of like if the Thunder won this year and we were just like, oh my God. And then they went on to win 2 more in the last 4 years. But like we looked at Golden State like this infant team in 2015 and they won and they felt ahead of the curve and they beat Cleveland and they beat LeBron on the biggest stage. And like, that was the argument. And then the next year, Cleveland winning. So I'm with you. I think 3 out of 4 there is probably right. I think that whole stretch is right. 2014 is actually one of the most interesting ones left. San Antonio beats Miami.
Yeah.
That is obviously the end of the LeBron, Wade, Bosh era. Yeah. But those guys were, let's just call it what it is, knowing what we know now is out the window. Those were like, that was still the peak of their powers.
Yeah, and that was healthy Bosh. That was pre-steep decline Wade.
It was declining Wade. Like he was declining.
Right, but it wasn't to the point where he was a Cavalier afterthought.
Were they better than Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, who ultimately won Finals MVP? Manu Ginobili, Marco Bellinelli, Patty Mills, Danny Green, Boris Diaw, Thiago Splitter.
I don't think they were.
So we still think Spurs are a better team. Okay.
Yeah.
2013, Miami won. I think that's right. 2012. That was probably the net. LeBron was one of the best individual seasons of NBA history. Like just straight
LeBron
up.
would have won the title against the Western Conference All-Stars.
Yeah.
In 5.
We agree with Dallas in 2011. Like that was not.
No. That was not supposed to happen.
2010 LA was better than 2010 Boston. I will argue that till the day I die. That was by that point a corpse of Boston. That 7. That series was really good. Went 7. It was really one of the first ones I truly, truly remember every moment of. Because I was still pretty young.
Watching it.
I was still pretty young, like in those days when Shaq and Kobe were breaking up. Last couple here. LA was better than Orlando, obviously.
Yeah, we can skip that.
Or 5 either way. Boston better than LA in 2008. That Boston team was disgusting. That Boston team was insane.
It's just crazy to think that when you juxtapose them with 2010, just how quickly
it flipped.
It flipped. But I think I think it is a split, and I think Boston gets the nod in 08, and the Lakers, as we established, get it in 2010. And these were not young teams at this point, but man,
let's just go through this Boston team for a second. Let's just go memory lane. The best defensive team by a large margin, 98.9 defensive rating. They were first in net rating despite being the 10th offensive rating. That shows you how good their defense
was. That's how good that defense was. Yeah.
Just the thought process of the top 5 guys I'm about to name all received a vote of some kind. Granted, Rondo's was 16th defensive player of the year vote. Neither here nor there. But you had 3rd in MVP, Kevin Garnett. You had defensive player of the year, Kevin Garnett. All-star Kevin Garnett for all-NBA first team, all-defensive first team. You had all-star Ray Allen. You had all-star Paul Pierce, all-NBA third team Paul Pierce. You had Rajon Rondo. You had James Posey, Kendrick Perkins, Eddie House, Tony Allen, Sam Cassell, Leon Poe, Glenn Davis. 11 guys legit deep. And B.J. Brown had a big moment in that playoffs, if I remember right, as well.
Yeah, and again.
That's 12 guys, by the way.
Yeah, that's almost – they couldn't have had more people.
I have a fond memory of all of them, despite them being the enemy team in this situation. So that shows you something. Yeah. The fact that 2008 is that memorable It's a reason that
Oh,
Bill Simmons and all
absolutely.
these guys prop that championship up like it's this holy thou thing. It was a
Well,
legit amazing championship team.
for 15 years they had to. But
Fair.
yeah,
Last couple: San Antonio, Cleveland. That's no debate whatsoever.
no.
Miami, Dallas, in 2006. Let's look at that Dallas team. What's that Dallas team? What we thought we were, or they were. Dirk, Jason
Yeah.
Terry,
Yeah.
Josh Howard, Jerry Stackhouse, Marquise Daniels. No, there's no way that Miami team was better. They're better.
I would struggle to line those two teams up and find myself leaning Miami, to be honest. It set the stage for Miami being the best team in the league for most of half a decade, but
so you're make sure I understand you. You're solidly saying it was that Dwayne Wade Shaq team, like
no,
they
I'm
weren't.
saying it was Dallas then, but then if you look at
Oh, interesting.
Wade establishing himself and being someone LeBron could go team up with, I think that set up the championships to follow.
I don't know. Okay, so this is maybe a good one to talk about. Dwayne Wade, Shaq, Jason Williams, Antoine Walker, Udonis Haslam. Again, remember, I'm always reading points per game down. Just easier to filter that one.
I mean, that's
Haslam, Alonzo Mourning, Gary Payton. This was 37-year-old back into the
it's not the
doorstep.
glove. Yeah.
I should probably just read minutes. That probably makes way more sense because then you get real rotation stuff. Dwayne Wade, Jason Williams, Udonis Haslam, Shaq, James Posey, who we talk about becoming a championship guy 2 years later, Gary Payton, Antoine Walker, Derek Anderson, Alonzo Mourning, and Shannon Anderson. That's the top 10. Dallas, let me do that one more time, and then we'll get out of here. That was, by the way, Don Nelson coached Mavericks.
Oh my goodness,
that might matter. That might matter in this case because that's late Pat Riley at that point. I mean, granted, any Pat Riley is better than no Pat Riley. Probably. Dirk, Jason Terry, Josh Howard, Marquise Daniels, Jerry Stackhouse, Doug Christie, Adrian Griffin. There's a name. Eric Dampier, Devin Harris, and Keith Van Horn. I have to go Miami. I don't know. Maybe it's like older. Maybe it's the fun memory of Jason Williams and Gary Payton and Alonzo Mourning being all these old guys that got it done and won a championship and were good players. But
right, it validated their careers they had established well before that, and that missing piece of the title.
Wade was so good. Like I'm talking, this was like Superman stuff. The fact, and he was what? That was his third year in the league.
It was his arrival, essentially. Yeah,
that's part of the push for me, I think.
So maybe the Jalen Williams Wade stuff can stop now for the benefit of both of them.
I would go Miami. Close.
I mean, this isn't like a plant a flag at the 50 kind of thing. This is also getting towards the era where I can't confidently say I was even necessarily watching a lot of this. I remember watching that LeBron finals because I was right as I started watching the NBA in earnest, and I was like, LeBron and again a couple of years had made it, and I was so confident that they were going to beat the Spurs, and I learned very quickly that you can have LeBron, but you got to have somebody else because they got destroyed by a Spurs team that I would, as a young Thunder fan, grow to fear for years to come. But
San Antonio, Detroit in 2005. That was second year Detroit after winning the year before. That was San Antonio. That was Tim. That was also one of their best series they ever played, I believe. If I remember, I think they won in 4 or 5. That was Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, Bruce Bowen, Manu Ginobili, Rasha Nesterovich, Brett Barry, Robert Ory, Devin Brown, Nazir Muhammad, Glenn Robinson. Yeah, that team was disgusting. No question. All right, last one. I swear. Was Detroit actually better than LA in 2004? For context, LA, this is the last year of Shaq and Kobe. This is Phil Jackson, 56 and 26. This is Mitch Kupchak as the executive. That's quite the pull and throwback there for you. That is in minutes per game order. Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Gary Payton, 35 years old, 40-year-old Karl Malone, 26-year-old Devin George, Rick Fox, Derek Fisher, Stanislav Medvenko, Horace Grant, Kareem Rush, Byron Russell, Jamal Sampson, Brian Cook. Luke Walton played 10 minutes a game that year. Ime Udoka played 7 minutes a game that year. For a reminder for the young folk out there, because that Pistons year, I wish I was old enough to remember. That was Larry Brown. Talk about an elite coaching matchup, by the way. Larry Brown, that was executive Joe Dumars. I'm just reading the page in front of me. I already have my answer made up, by the way. I'm curious for you. I'm not going to say a word. Ben Wallace averaged the most minutes per game on that team, which is crazy. I guess you could play him all the time back then because no one cared about fouling and free throws back then. Ben Wallace, Richard Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace. I must have said Rasheed Wallace twice. Ben Wallace and then Rasheed at the fifth most minutes. Mehmet Okur, Lindsey Hunter, Corliss Williamson, Mike James, Chucky Atkins, Eldon Campbell. Darvin Ham was also on that team. A lot of former coaches.
It's wild to think about. As kid and at some point Nash and
Hubert Davis was also on this team.
Was he really?
Yeah, 33-year-old Hubert Davis. That's the most random thing I'm going to say this show.
I think nostalgia factor. I've got to go to Detroit. I know they didn't actually necessarily repeat from 04, but
after reading the retirement home that I read a moment ago, Detroit was better by a mile. There's no shot they should have won the championship. Like in the moment, it was like a surprise because of the media, but come on. Detroit was so much better. It's unreal. All right. We've been here a long time. Let's get wrapped up here. I just want to do that. I thought it was a fun exercise, and we won't be able to do much of that here in the next couple of days just because of how quick turnaround this next one is. And also just the series as you get deeper and later, you don't have time for the fluff. So this is a fun conversation regardless. Anything else on the way out?
No, I hope we get 6 games, and I hope my pre-series prediction is proved right. But that is all for naught if I'm not on here for a second post-Thunder victory reaction. Yeah,
I'm already predictioned out. So, because I had Thunder in 4.
Me too.
So we won't be doing that. It's 2-1, and that's obviously not possible now. So, on behalf of Grayson and the 1009 podcast, we want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. Link in the top of the description for support to all of Grayson's socials, as well as the 2 Pointers podcast stuff as well. Like, comment, subscribe. This has been the 2 Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and we'll see you after hopefully a really good game 4.